Hey family, I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Grinder.
And we are Black Families Rising.
We're a podcast that talks about the negative and positive things going on in our communities here and all over the world.
Yes, well, we go from A all the way to Z, talking about everything for us, about us, to help us be the successful beings that we are already destined to be.
So with that being said, let's get into our first episode where we talk about what do you think when you hear the phrase the Black family.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Peace.
And here we are. All right. So, what do you all think of when you hear of a Black family? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Okay. So for me, when I hear the phrase Black family, my first visual thought was seeing like a big mama. And I don't know why. I really honestly, I cannot tell you why. Because growing up, my grandmother wasn't that type of traditional figure of the big mama. I don't know if I got it from movies or just thinking about visual pictures, but I just think of someone that brings the family together. I think of Southern food, cooking, everybody at the table, cousins coming over, cookout, people doing electric slide, like just right off the back. When I thought of when I think of Black families, I feel the essence of the celebration of life, right? The essence of the celebration of life and the overcoming of like struggle. Like the big mama represents for me, someone that holds the family together, someone that's overcome a lot, but endured enough to still bring love to the table, right? So that connectedness and that feeling of unity and the feeling of celebration of life that we all, get to experience when we come together as Black family, that shared experience of those moments.
Michelle, that was really good. I'm going to tell you honestly, I feel like you touched on a few of the thoughts that come directly to mind when I think of the phrase Black family. The first thing I see is a cookout. I see a cookout. I see little cousins ripping and running. I see, the adults who are over their specific barbecues and nobody can touch the ribs or whatnot. It's their job. Who's fighting over the dessert or the mac and cheese? It just has that air of a time and space when everybody looked out for each other.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't just your own parents, but if you cut up in the street, you were going to hear it and may feel it on the way home.
That's right. Yeah.
And that word is going to make its way home to your parents before you make it there. And you're going to catch it for the fact that it made it all the way home. I think about some of the events after a church, how at least at Black churches, African American churches, when church is over, it's never over. We fellowship then, and you go to church for the day. Sunday is pretty much written off. Whatever else you thought you were doing, that's what you were doing that day. So I think if it could be all summed up in one word, it's a community. It's a community experience from young and old across the board.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah. So when I think about the Black family, I think about my parents. Both of my parents are one of seven. You understand? So back in the, as we probably all know, back in the 50s when they were born, that was a thing to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. You know what I'm saying? By the same man, that is. You know what I mean? And right? Am I right? So my mother, she's from the South. So when I think about the Black family in the South, in the South, everyone has homes. Everyone has the picket fence. Everyone has the yard. You know what I mean? And as Scott and Michelle alluded to, it's the cookout. And I'm thinking about Thanksgiving, the turkey, the ham. Our Thanksgivings are live. You know what I'm saying? For real. All of our Black families. We sit around. I think about the football game. I was looking at the football game. Things of that nature. But on the other side, with my father's side of the family, he's from a city. He's a city dude. And I think about, public housing, because I grew up in the projects. And as I alluded to on my own podcast, when I was growing up in the projects, I didn't know the Black family that owned a home. You know what I'm saying? So me now as a homeowner myself, I'm trying to change that whole thought process and trajectory to my own family. You know what I mean? We don't have to be struggling. We don't have to be poor. You understand? Right. You know, but I can remember in the summer times, you know, in a project, you know, we didn't know that we was poor. Let's say that. You know, we outside on the concrete playing ball. You know, we go across the street to the community center playing ball, you know, and we might hear some gunshots at night, you know, and that's just where we came from. So, right. it differs from the South and city Black families, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, we always have one another's back, man. You know, so that's what the Black family means to me, having one another's back.
Yeah, speaking of back, man, I appreciate that. Like, you know, when I think of Black families, I think of economics and the need for both the male and female, the mother, the father, husband and wife to be in the household. It's right. Very, very essential to progress through the decades. I mean, it's been shown in history, and it needs to be shown in the present. And so when you think about everything, it starts in the home. Discipline, structure, love, unity. It has to start inside before it can expound outside. And it starts within as well. So it has to be reinitiated, re-educated, and revitalized within to expound outwardly, man. So when I think of Black families, the first word that comes to my mind, you know what I mean, is economics. And that's something that should continuously be emphasized within our communities.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody had good answers. So, and there's no right or wrong answer. Just,
right.
You know, get you all's opinion on, you know, what you hear. And I can relate to each and everything you all said as far as, you know, Big Mama. My Big Mama, yep. I had the liberty of being able to know my great grandmother who lived to be 98 years
wow.
old. Mm. And so I learned a lot from her. She was born in 1920. Okay. Mm. So she told me a lot about, you know, her growing up and her not really knowing her parents. She had 16 kids. Mm. So, you know, she had 16 kids. And I can just remember, like she said, the Big Mama house. I can remember us all sleeping on the floor. You know, all of our cousins coming to the house. She's making a meal. We'll go, at the time, this one KFC was good to me. I don't know what happened to KFC, but back in the day, KFC was good. We used to go get the bucket of chicken on Sunday after church, and everybody, you know, made sides and things. And then we watched the football game. You know, the men went to go watch the football game, like Quan said, kids play outside, you know, while they're cooking and just smelling the food and not being able to touch it. And then before you can eat, have to sit in that long prayer where great grandma pray for everybody you can ever think of in the family, whether you knew them or not.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and just being that kid, like, you know, and try to sneak a little piece and somebody will see you at the corner of the eye, you know, smack the hand real quick. So I just remember all of that. And just like Scott said, the community, in this, the same thing, growing up, everybody in the neighborhood knew your name. Everybody knew who you were. I just remember, I could say we was very creative in ways. Even when you went to, you know, if you go to someone else's house now and you play like spades or Uno, everybody have their own way they play spades or Uno. And it's the same game.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How creative, you know, we were, you know, everyone, you know, it was a candy shop on the corner or the ice shop on the corner, or the candy, you know, or the chips. You had the guy that sold chips and pops. So just, you know, we didn't think of ourselves. We knew we didn't have a lot, but it wasn't like we was poor. I didn't feel that way. Right. Because of the love in our community. We didn't want for anything. If we didn't have it, we can go down the street and get it. We can go down the street and ask somebody for a cup of sugar. You know, we can go down the street and ask somebody for some milk. So, you know, we did work, you know, like a community. So what would you all say has changed since then, you know, to now? What are the differences, and what do you think contributed to, where we are now?
It's a very good question.
That's a really good question. And I like to back up just a little bit to talk about, because I think to know what has changed, we need to look at what is something that's consistent and stay the same. I had this conversation with a friend not too long ago about being African American in America, the sense of understanding that we have culture, right? And that we have a shared culture. And they were trying to challenge me on the aspect of well, do we have a shared culture? Because we're not from Ireland. We're not from this place. We're not, we've been broken up from all of these places. We came all over the diaspora of Africa. Do we have a shared culture? And I was able to say, well, let's talk about your cookout experience. What is that like? How do you guys celebrate Christmas? What type of things you cook for Thanksgiving, right? And it was things that we were able to say that was a shared experience. And I think that that's a part of our culture and our richness in that. And I think that that's a part of what we're starting to lose, because we don't have the person that holds down the family anymore. So for me, my grandmother was a person that everybody came over to her house. She was the matriarch of the family, or she is the matriarch of the family. We have dinners and we have events. Everyone's coming to her house. But then as people get older, who takes over that role? And I think that because we don't necessarily, we get so focused on education, getting a job, moving away, setting up your own family, obtaining and being able to buy a house. We get so caught up into those roles that we don't necessarily think about the nucleus of the family and what shared experiences that we need to provide, not only for our own selves and providing an opportunity, but for our children, so that we have traditions that are laid down generation after generation after generation. That, having that big mama, so to speak, someone taking on that role, because it got a negative connotation. Yeah, people didn't want to do that or attain to be that anymore because of the negative connotation that it started to get. But honestly, if we didn't look outside of the roles that were being played but look at how it really was in our own lives, right? Not the roles that were just being played on movies or different things like that, but really looking at how it played in our own lives and what that position meant in our family, then we will understand the importance of having that, someone taking on that role. And not just being out for their own personal families, but looking at the overall family as a whole and trying to keep that unit together and have those traditions, go on generation after generation.
I absolutely agree with Lachelle, because I think about in my own household, after my grandmother died, because we all went to my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. That was a given. It wasn't even a point of conversation. That's what was happening. After she died, I would say about maybe 2 to 3 years after she died, it was now debated back and forth between, are we going to my uncle's house? My mother wanted to sell the house and this, that, and the other. And then once the house was sold, where was everybody going? And then Thanksgiving was a figure it out for yourself.
Yep.
And at the same time, our neighborhoods and communities have changed in ways where, for better, not for better, but just changed in ways where we're not connected with the neighbors the way that our parents, our grandparents.
Good point.
I made it a point to know my neighbors where I moved into, but I mean, when I was growing up, they knew the block. They knew the town. The town knew them. I couldn't go anywhere and not hear, oh, you're Ann's son. Oh, your son. Your Fran's son. Right. Your Ann's grandson. Everybody knew. And I couldn't get away with anything if I wanted to. But we are very siloed right now where, we don't know our neighbors. We don't know our neighborhood. We are not interwoven in it. They are not interwoven in us. There isn't that level of trust. And, that causes us to be that much more protective of our own children. And God forbid somebody says something to our children.
Right.
So I think that kind of also snowballs in and of itself. So there are definite things from our childhood that we've described initially that are fading away. And I think each day are fading away faster and faster. And I think our children, I know mine, are going to, if they don't have those experiences, are going to miss out on some critical experiences of the Black family.
I would think, man, what's missing, to keep it short, man, the respect that we have for our fellow woman and our fellow man, as well as of ourselves. I think that has dwindled. And I say that comes from, you know, it's going to kind of sound far-fetched, but I think that came from the 70s, you know what I mean? And we don't even have the respect for the basic vocations, like a carpenter, like a plumber, like a contractor. You know what I'm saying? It's like nowadays, if you ain't making $1 million, you ain't doing it, right? That's crazy. You understand? Because that's in the 70s, that's what they did. They took all of the trades out of the high school. They defunded the trades. You understand? And then now, back then, my parents, they were able to come out of school with their credential. You know what I'm saying? So when you take the trade out of the high school, what do I have to do? I have to now go to college and pay $200,000 for this loan and still be out of work with a $200,000 debt. You understand? So now I don't even have a vocation. Yeah, I got that paper on the wall, but do I have a fundamental vocation? You know what I'm saying? So now it comes back to how I'm looking at myself. You know what I mean? How are people looking at me? You know what I mean? Am I worthless because I don't got a college degree? Am I worthless because I don't have a vocation? You know what I'm saying? So I think the whole mindset on how we look at one another has changed in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know what I mean? We actually had fundamental respect for one another. We had respect for the man that held down his family with his basic job. He didn't have to have $200,000 or the Benz outside. Nowadays, you know what I mean? You have to have all these, insignificant materials, you know what I'm saying, within the house home or them letters in back of your name for people even to give a damn about you as a person. So I really think the respect for our fellow man, that's what has dwindled during the past 50 years, man. Absolutely. Within the Black family.
I agree. For me, what I think has changed is the lack of media presence on television and on the radio. What you were often seeing, like I grew up watching like a lot of shows like The Cosby Show, where they talked about like culture, they talked about family. It plays a huge role today on what our younger brothers and sisters and our older brothers and sisters see today. So because there's a lack of like real solid foundation for us to really move forward on, that has taken a toll on how people perceive how we are today. And what happened is we become complacent. And then it initiates this whole, like, I guess, well, this is the way that I should be, as opposed to standing out of the majority and taking action. And so I think that with that being addressed, just that lack of presence of media, I feel that if we can have more of our own narratives being initiated, by our own people, that would be very helpful. You know what I mean? I remember shows like programs like PBS, and they had all these educational series about music, about culture, about unity, about power and love, and actually not just the struggle, but the essence of overcoming the struggle, right? I think that's lacking today. And so, that was in a high demand back then as opposed to what we're seeing now.
Me, I think, especially, I'm a Southern boy in North Carolina. So I feel like, the spirituality in the family is something that's starting to lack. I mean, and I'm not talking about religion. Everybody has their preferences. But you know what I'm saying? Like when I was growing up, there was nothing to come together like for those cookouts and where everybody pray and, talk about stuff that they went through back in the days. A lot of people look at like, some people, talk about voodoo and stuff like that. I'm from North Carolina, so that's deep. There's a lot of people that used to do that stuff. But a lot of people understand that some stuff that we were taught were bad isn't really bad. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people used to really teach their children about spirituality and about God, and not so much about, it wasn't so much about religion. I mean, a lot of people went to church, and I was raised in the church until I became Muslim, but beyond that, my mother always taught me that we were universal beings, so it went beyond just, the physical church, it went beyond just congregation and everyone just coming together just to talk about what Sister Mary had on yesterday in church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I really think the spirituality really is missing, especially now with the way some of these kids, some of these kids don't know anything about spirituality or God. Some of them don't pray or anything at all, fasting, any of that stuff. I've been fasting since I was 13. You know what I'm saying? My mama taught me what fasting meant, and how it was a spiritual thing and not a physical thing.
Right.
So that's what I believe. I feel like the spirituality is really, really missing, and then we need to get back to that. I think that would change a lot of mindsets. I think it would cut down on a lot of crime, a lot of, you know what I'm saying? And even just looking at each other as being connected. When I think of spirit, I think of all of us being connected, all of us being one. And when I was coming up, that was taught for a while, but as I got older, I saw that started dwindling. People weren't really teaching about us being one. It was too much separation, Even though we're still feeling that separation now, I feel like if we got back to the spirituality part of it and realizing that we are all a part of one vessel, I think that would clear up a lot of things and would change a lot of things that's going on in our families.
Yeah. Well put, brother.
That's deep. I agree.
Good point. Yep. And your comment made me think of another thing too that's missing: the art of storytelling. So being that I teach history, I understand the importance of being able to share your story, right? So as like I remember when I was younger, like my grandparents and like my great parents or great uncles and things like that, they would tell us like how they grew up, what it was like for them, so where you come from, your stock, if they're able to overcome, that you're able to overcome. But when those stories start to die out and you're only left with the history, right, those historic moments that America wants you to know, you don't have really much to rely on. Their story, how America overcame, how that. But what happens? What happens when you're not included in that story? When you don't have something to fall back on, right? And so that's where you get your learning about your spirituality, learning about your family tree, learning about where you guys came from. A lot of people don't even know where they come from.
Right.
Oh,
that's true.
They don't even know. And they're like, this was systematic. This is done on purpose.
That's right. The ploy of the colonizer.
Yep. Exactly. They want us to. I know when I was growing up, going back to, I think someone talked about the community and how, like, if you was running up and down the street doing what you wasn't supposed to do, somebody was going to tell you. Well, where my family's from, New Jersey, all my aunts and uncles lived in the same neighborhood. They literally bought houses next door to each other.
Right.
And so I know for a lot of families, Black families, that's how it was. Like, people didn't move that far from home. So that's your family was literally in your neighborhood, your cousins, your aunts, different things like that. So if you did something, they had no problem going to tell your parents. You knew you can behave or misbehave in the middle of the street, right? There's no accountability. There's no storytelling. Those type of things are lacking in our communities. We don't even feel like we own any one community any before. I remember growing up, I was like, oh no, this is my family community. We got me and all my cousins live up in here. You just couldn't come on our block and do anything.
Right.
And, once we got older, and like I said, everybody kind of moved away. Everybody kind of separated and did their own thing. We don't have that sense of ownership or owning. Like, I'm from New Jersey. There's a lot of small towns that are historically Jewish that are known. The families, the culture, and everything still is in that town. There's a lot of small Italian towns that are in New Jersey for hundreds of years.
That's right.
In there. But I can't say that for any one town or thing.
Not at all. I
can't even say that for being in DC. That was chocolate for a long time.
Yep.
Now it's completely changing.
Yeah.
Even Berry Farms, which is in Southeast, was known for years that it was a thing, had a culture, had a place. You knew how you was going to walk in there. You knew it was time to leave. You understood that. But even that has changed too as well. So I think that we don't really have a sense of ownership in anything anymore. And that's just taking away and breaking down the families.
I agree with you as well. Your words reminded me of a very poignant moment when I was in school. I remember it to this day. I was in 8th grade, and we were given an assignment about talking about the history of our own family by our history teacher. And there was this one kid in class, I'll never forget it. He was a Caucasian child. He came in with the family book, which had the family crest and name on it. And it showed the family history back to the 1400s.
Wow.
Yep.
And he said, you know, he was pointing out how, you know, this one was a preacher, or this one was a police officer, or this one was a soldier, and I'm doing this. I want to be this because my great 10 times great removed, blah, blah, blah. And our family crest stands for. And I didn't want to go up and say a word, because the furthest that I could go back to was my great grandmother, who was still alive across the street from my grandmother.
Right.
I didn't know anything more than that.
Right.
And what that fundamentally does is it erases how you are interwoven into history and your importance thereof. You have no stake in it. You know, if your history is shallow, how can you wade in the deep end of the pool?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
You know, it's while it's not something that people say aloud, I think psychologically it's so crushing, because, you know, when you see these things come up on the internet, I know I do, I'm sure all of you have, especially during Black History Month, where it points out, oh, this Black person discovered this, in case you didn't know, or this person did this, or this, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, if you see one and actually research it, you're like, I didn't know that.
Right.
Right.
It hurts.
Yep.
It hurts.
It does.
Because we have spent so much time being schooled on anyone else but us. And to say we have not contributed, anything you don't speak on is not important and is disregarded. And then to disregard an entire segment of society, an entire people.
Yep.
Yes.
If you devalue their past, you're automatically devaluing their future.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right. Well put.
So yes, I yay and amen to what you said, Lachelle.
And just real quick, I just want to add to that part. I'm teaching history, right, to fourth graders. And it came up to, we're talking about Maryland's history and how Maryland, you know, was established and everything like that. And it got to mentioning slavery, and they put it in with immigration. Like it was one passage. And I had a huge problem with that. And luckily,
that's crazy
that I have that lets me go all in. So
that's crazy.
I went all the way in, and I read it to them. I read it to them and said, you know, tell me what you think about this. You know, does this make sense to you? And I had to remember, I have I know I told you guys earlier that majority of my children are Hispanic, and so a lot of them are immigrants. They traveled here, they crossed the border,
right?
So they went through that struggle. They remember being 3 and 4 years old and what it was like going through,
right? And
I had to explain to them that slavery was not the same.
Nothing like that.
It was nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
And I needed my children who were Black in the class, I need them to understand this. It wasn't the same struggle.
Nope.
It wasn't the same struggle, that it was completely different. And they try to make it seem like, well, they were provided housing, they were provided clothes, they were provided food. So
really,
you marginalize one group of people like that, and you misinterpret their entire history. You take away
that's right
everything. So, you know, we started talking about Harriet Tubman. That changes her whole story. Oh, well, she rescued over 600 slaves in this part of Maryland. Oh, that wasn't really a big deal. I mean, because they were already given housing and food. That takes away the whole experience. You see what I'm saying? So I had to let them know the harsh reality of what actually happened. So then when we are talking about these figures as Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, they understand what they actually meant.
Right.
But they were trying to destroy that.
Well, I'll share this with you. My middle child had a recent aha moment. He's my intellectual deep thinker. And we were watching the first part of Amend on Netflix. It's about the 14th Amendment. I recommend it to anybody. Recommend it to anybody to see it. But that's the amendment that really defines what it is to be a citizen in this country.
Yep.
And it's been defined and redefined and redefined since it's been written to include more of the populace. And he was captivated by it. And I said something to him because I said it pointedly because I needed him to get this one fact that I knew he wasn't picking up on. And I said, son, I need you to understand this. There is only one group of individuals in America that never had to be legislated as people.
Preach.
Mm.
Preach.
Every other group,
Preach.
every other complexion, every other sex, every other distinction had to be written into the Constitution.
Yep.
True.
Yes.
True indeed.
Facts.
Including you.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and his eyes got wide, and I know he caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because, like Lachelle is saying, every time we gloss over these things with our children learning them, they don't learn the value, the struggle, the depth. And when they go out into the world and are faced with the world and don't understand why the world does not match what they've been taught and don't know the history of how it got to the point where it doesn't match what they've been taught and why everything feels the way it does and seems the way it is, you're basically sending an unarmed individual out to war.
Yep.
Yep.
True.
Yep. Speaking about, for real, you two, it just makes me understand and think about an interesting fact that I actually became privy to the other day. In 1860, we Black people, we were like, I think it was like 4.5 million of us here, right? And another nationality, which I will leave nameless, it was about, I think 4,000 of them, okay? Fast forward to 1900, we become 11 million and they become 100,000, right? Now, this is where it gets interesting. Fast forward 100 years. We are now 45, 48, and they are 65. How's that happen? Where do we go? So the question was, what's missing? We're missing.
That's right.
We're missing. We've been slain. We've been incarcerated. We've been forgotten about. Let's say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you go from that big disparity? How do we go from, 100,000 to 11 million to 45 million to 65 million? How does that happen, man? That's not a fluke. That's not, it's not a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? It was the ploy. It was the objective. So we're missing. Yep.
That's true. I'm glad you said that. That brings me to a point I wanted to ask. Looking at the way things are right now, in the midst of the pandemic, all the police brutality and whatnot, and where do you see in the future the state of the Black family going? Like, where do you see us heading as a Black family in the future?
And we all had to stop and pause and marinate.
Right, I know. You have to. That's.
Where do I see?
Like he said, a lot of us are being incarcerated.
Right. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
It depends.
They trying to get rid of us.
That's right.
That's
the plan.
They make us out to be the bad guy in every scenario.
Absolutely.
Just so that they can have the upper hand and then write us
That's
off.
right.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
It's crazy when you said it. It just made me think of so many different things, right? But it made me think of this one quote that you have to be the changes you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that I think one, we need to come together. I think there needs to be a unity of men and women, Black men and Black women.
That's right.
We have to heal our wounds. We have to heal those generational curses of things that happen in our family, that has divided us, things that Black men have seen from Black women that they haven't really appreciated, things that have happened to Black women from Black men that we haven't really appreciated. I think we need to get to the point that we heal that, because we cannot have a family if we don't fix us.
That's right.
And we can't depend on our grandparents to do it. We can't ask our parents to do it. The only way that's going to come about is if we do it, because we are the examples for the younger ones.
That's right.
They need to see that happen with us. And so I think that systematically there were things that were done, yes, on purpose, to sabotage us to get to this point, because when we're powerful, we're more powerful together. We see how they did, families that work together in communities, Black Wall Street. We've seen what happens when we can actually come together. We're brilliant, we're intelligent, we're creative, we're innovative, we're powerful. We're their worst enemy.
Right.
We have to keep us divided. It's a necessity for their survival.
That's right.
We understand that. And that's why we're attacked so much. The Willie Lynch plan is still going forth. Let's not think that it's
absolutely.
It is still perpetuating and recycling itself. And it's a good plan because they don't need anybody to enforce it. It just grows in its
That's right.
moving. Right. But we need to educate ourselves on that. And we need to be on one accord. We need unity. We need everybody to understand. This is the number one thing we need to do. We need to fix our families. We need to heal, and we need to come together, and we need to bring that union of Black man and a Black woman.
That's
together,
right.
Because there is no family without it. There is no other dynamic that works, that breeds more children coming in.
That's right.
Brings more money and more income into the household.
I agree.
We have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
True. Very true.
I'm gonna have to be very transparent with my answer. This is a very difficult and I would dare say even emotional question.
Yep.
I straddle many points on this question. I'm a retired police officer, retired due to injury. I am a Black father of 3 Black boys, okay, that I'm raising to be young Black men.
Yep.
Okay. I have, I remember when I was still in training and I was a police officer in the town that I grew up in, being told by my training officer at the time, where we were in the section of town, you see a Black guy here, stop him.
Wow.
Because we know Black guys don't live around here. So that told me if I had been coming around there when I was a kid, why I would have been stopped.
Wow.
Okay. My issue is this, and I'm not going to blanket blame every white person or every this or every that. We have to be able to openly speak to the fact that this nation was built with certain systemic racist ideals and engines within its foundation. It's baked in. And despite how many times we point at it, how many times we try and work around it, until you actually dismantle those things, they're still there. And for me, people might think it's different because I was a police officer. And the fact of the matter is, I remember when my eldest, he was about 12, and he wanted to go for the first time by himself out to the park to our concerts in the park in the town that I live in. And he was going to help out selling tickets and whatnot. He very involved in that. I had no problem, but I remembered it was cool that day. And I watched him leave, and he had decided to put on a hoodie, and he put the hood up as he left. And I'll never forget, I got a chill.
Wow, man.
An individual who has worn a vest and a badge in the blue was just as nervous. I was nervous for my son. I didn't want anyone. This was not too long after Trayvon Martin.
Right.
Wow.
I did not want anything to happen to my son. There comes a point where equality has to happen. And it has to happen at a fundamental level, beyond the government, beyond the economics, beyond the education, but where we can come to a place of understanding and mutual respect of each other across the races. Because, in my opinion, people can only be patient but so long.
Right.
Parents can only live in fear but so long. And I don't want this to come across as a threat. I don't want this to come across as a warning or whatever. But I know how I feel about my kids.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Same here.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, God forbid, I am not a father who will be on a camera somewhere begging people to be peaceable about things.
Nah.
There'll be no forgiveness for
Okay.
None of that.
Right.
None of that. No.
I'm with you.
None of that. It's on for real.
I've had multiple conversations with people of varying races, and I've said to them time and again, we don't want what you have.
Right.
That's right.
We're not trying to take what you own or possess. We want what we can have, and we're not looking for your permission to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Doing it.
And with my background in security and everything else, and threat assessment, threat forecasting, the things that really scare me, and before I get, all right, let me just say this. Law enforcement has to change. Law enforcement has to change.
True.
A lot of people are talking about defund the police, and that has a lot of different connotations. I agree with defund the police in the sense that, and anybody who has been in law enforcement or knows anything about law enforcement since the 60s, especially leading into the 70s up till now, more has been put on law enforcement's plate to deal with that they should not be dealing with.
Right.
And that has led to law enforcement officers encountering situations where they really shouldn't be involved. You should have social workers, case managers, this, that, or the other involved. If you put a cop in a situation, the only way a cop can affect change is if a law is broken, which then in turn causes more problems for some people who didn't need to be arrested, let alone, God forbid, other things happening.
Right.
But when I think about George Floyd, okay, and the video that we all bore witness to, and how you had people of multiple races begging with this officer to get off this man's neck. From a legal standpoint, from a law enforcement standpoint, I know for a fact that if a civilian versus civilian, okay, if someone saw you kneeling on someone's neck and you believe that their life was in danger or they're about to lose their life, you can and have the right to defend them if you should so choose. I believe, not that I want to see this. I'm not saying I want to see this, but I believe we're on a trajectory where people are on their way to have to respond to defend themselves from these situations. I don't want that to happen. I still have friends in law enforcement, but I still also have my sons.
Yep.
And what I'm talking about is finding a way to defuse this bomb before it goes off, because if something doesn't happen, it will.
Yep.
I truly believe that, because I know for a fact I'm not going to stand idly by if I come up on a situation like that and see my son. So,
No.
So choices have to be made, and changes, significant, substantial, fundamental changes have to be made before it gets so much worse than it is now.
Yep.
So true.
That's true.
So true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends. I don't know. I can't, that's a very good question you guys posed. The future of us as a people, it depends, man. And I think fundamentally it depends on us. We have to create a code of conduct within our own community. You understand? Yes. We have to start learning how to govern ourselves. And if we can do that, it will decrease the likeliness of us getting, into situations. You know what I'm saying? When I say govern ourselves, I mean basically becoming, so to speak, our own police force. You understand? Yeah. You know what I mean? When we see our children engaging in certain things, letting them know, hey, you're headed that way. Okay. And if you go that way, X, Y, and Z is inevitably going to happen. You understand? And them having the respect for you to listen. So that's basically an answer to the previous question. What lacks, the children don't listen to the elders. They think that we don't know what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like we ain't been around the block twice. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They don't understand, you know, and buying from our own, you know what I mean? Having our own cleaners, having our own stores, having our own, you know, chicken spots in the hood. We could have our own Chinese restaurants in the hood. We don't got to go see, you know what I mean, the other nationality. You know what I'm saying? Having our own things in the hood. Now check it out. Once you create this code of conduct, what you're doing, there's basically stipulations on this. If you do not abide by this code of conduct, like the other coaches and the other nationalities, they have the code of conduct. You are excommunicated out of the community. You understand? Yeah. I say that to say, I got people in my family that have done the unthinkable to their family members. And we at Cookout still speak to them like it's nothing.
Yep.
True.
We
are sending the wrong message. We are saying you could do, right? We are saying you could do whatever you want to us. You understand? So therefore, if you feel like you can't abide by the stipulations of the Black community, of the Black family, you go up out there. You understand? You take that business about there, and they don't love you out there. You understand? You know, so I love you that much that, you know, I'll be willing to walk away from you. You know what I'm saying? Just to then to, you know, let you sit here and act a fool. You understand? So basically, I think it depends on the code of conduct we got within the community first. You know what I'm saying? We have to, straight up, that has to be put in stone. Like, yo, this is what we living by. This is how we take care of business. And if you feel like you're not living by that type of code of conduct, you got to get up out of here. You understand? And we have to be collective on that situation, for real. And we have to all agree to what's right and what's wrong. And if we do that, you know, we'll be all right. If not, I don't know, bro. You know what I'm saying? Anything's possible. You know what I mean? We're going to continue to go backwards.
That's true.
I don't know if Jason wanted to jump in.
Yeah. Jason?
Oh, no, I'm here. I could wait. I don't know if we have time for, I don't know if another question was to be posed, but no, it depends. Grinder, Jazz, is there another question?
Well, I have one more point on this one, but I didn't know if you had anything on it.
No. I'm just because it's really. I'll sum it up. From my perspective, real quick. To be honest, I've been using social media just like how we're able to put this platform together. I'm using this platform in the same essence of being online through this whole pandemic and the police brutality and everything that's going on. I'm using this opportunity to really, because this could be a very depressive and very pessimistic time for a lot of our people based on they're seeing, what's going on. So the best way, as we're often known for doing, is overcoming these obstacles. And I believe that when you use your circumstance, like they did in the 1900s and beforehand, you can overcome a lot when you know that you're motivated by your circumstances. So in my case, out here in Canada with some brothers who are from like Haiti, Nigeria, all over, right? We've been using the online platform to educate and provide opportunities online so we could kind of reinvent the wheel for a digital Black Wall Street. You know what I mean? So we're teaching brothers and sisters basically on economics, fundamentals, the universal language of math, the essence of body language, how to really acknowledge and protect themselves when coming across, situations when I guess they're confronted by police officers in certain circumstances, using a lot of the resources that we have online to really initiate and educate them so they can be their own entrepreneurs. They don't have to work a 9-to-5 or 7-to-3. So we're utilizing these online platforms to do that. And there's so much talent and resources like Exhibit A in this room that we can always reach out to if we lack in one department. So we've been utilizing the online presence for that initiative, because with school, let's face it, a lot of them are they're nonchalant, of course, according to this whole online reformation. So we're using this opportunity to also educate them when they're out of school. They can still come online and be educated about life. And one thing that we initiate as well is mental wellness. because a lot of them are traumatized by what's going on, what they see on social media. So we're trying to reverse that. And that's why media plays a significant role, I think, for our people. So that's my that. Moving on to the future, I'm very optimistic about it. And we're just using the resources we have online.
I would just want to say this one more point before I turn it back over to Jasmine. In my opinion, I feel a nation, you can learn a lot about what a nation values by what they invest in. Don't take them at their word. Watch where the money goes.
That's right.
America likes to talk about how the children are the future, but do they invest more in law enforcement and prisons or schools?
Right.
And it's something that mentally drives me crazy. I look at Lachelle and I commend her. She is a 4th grade school teacher, which blows my mind because being a teacher in America, you're being offered a job where you already know that the budget cuts are coming.
Straight up.
The budget cuts are coming every single year. Yep. And part of the responsibilities of your job are to supply your workplace from people who are paying taxes for you to do your job too. Which, you know, and all kudos to her. And I don't mean to sound derisive, but I can't think of any other job where anybody else would even think twice of working there. If your boss tells you in the hiring process, by the way, you need to supply your own keyboard, monitor, pencil, paper, this, that, and the other, show up with your own chair, you know, all that kind of, it blows my mind. But the children are our future. Yet still, we're going to invest more into prisons and police work instead of school, because instead of being preventative, because the more that we put in the front end, the better result will come out the back end.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you why they do that. So you know you can buy prison stock, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's no school stocks. There's no public education school.
It's prison stocks. Absolutely.
There's prison stocks. So the day they start having public education stocks, we might see a change. But as long as you can invest and make money and you can yield more money by having more people go to jail, they're going to continue to do that.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it is. And you're absolutely right. Every year, except for this year, because I didn't go inside of a school building, but I always spend at least $500. That's just to start the year. That's to decorate my classroom and to make it beautiful. So it's a place that kids want to come to every day.
Wow.
And it's a safe space and they can escape. Like I said, my students are, I'm a Title I school, which means that majority of my students are on free and reduced lunch. It's an area of poverty.
Right.
Okay. So there's a lot of food insecurity. There's a lot of trauma that happens at home. There's a lot of broken homes. There's a lot of absentee fathers, absentee mothers, children that are living with grandparents or a cousin or different things like that. So when they come to school, it has to be a place where they know that they are safe and they are loved, because that is the first primary thing that you have to take care of before you can even educate them. I can't educate somebody that doesn't feel secure, that's hungry, that I have to take care of their basic needs first.
Right.
But they just teach me to educate. They just want me to come in and teach a curriculum. They're not worried that this child has no clothes. And now I have to go out because they can't afford, or the rats ate through their clothes, which literally happened when I taught kindergarten with my kindergartner. And so I would go out and I would go to the store to buy the uniforms for them. So that when they came in, if they had a uniform that was too small, that had holes in it, or was dirty, I can put clean clothes on the children.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Toothbrushes, combs, snacks, those type of things that we 100% provide for the children and on our income, which is why I probably have so many businesses right now, because there's no way I would make it, even though I went to school and got a degree like everyone else.
Yep.
Got a master's. Like if I was in any other industry,
you'd be
any other industry with my years of experience, and with my education level, I will be making 6 figures.
That's right.
Teaching.
Absolutely.
I have to supplement the income by working extremely hard, doing a whole lot of other businesses.
Man.
So I can actually just utilize my degree to earn money so that I can sustain myself. And I live in PG County. This is one of the most affluent counties, African-American counties in the United States. It's expensive to live here. It's expensive. So one job, I don't have any friends that are not married, that does not work a second job or have a second income, that are teachers. Not a single one.
Wow.
And I have friends who work all summer just so they can pay for their classrooms all school
Wow.
year.
Wow.
They save every money to get a second job during the summer just so they can save up the money so they can spend on the children in the classroom. Yeah.
I mean, I've always said teachers are definitely supposed to be the highest paid employees in America. Definitely. Teachers. Absolutely.
Yep, I agree.
It's a harsh life. It's not a career choice that I recommend. When children tell me they want to be teachers, I show them all the ways they can use their education and teaching in other ways to make more money.
That's
before
right.
I tell them to enter a classroom.
Black Families Rising will return right after this commercial break. That was deep.
We hit some deep points. I would start off of, I don't know where to start. Everybody gets Oh my God, that was a good question. I agree with everyone points, especially like, you know, education is, you know, the least thing that is funded by our great USA, right? But that is factual. I was actually doing research. I'm doing research every day because, you know, just hitting on, we don't know a lot about our history and that feeling like, you know, Scott said of you know, them posting something on Facebook and you didn't know that. You know, just learning so we can teach our children, you know, so that they know, you know, where they come from and so on and so forth. So I was researching and I was watching this podcast and it was pretty much talking about what Scott said about the funding for the police. They actually have a police brutality fund. Okay. And they are getting paid. The insurance are getting paid. The insurance companies that are insuring them are getting paid. Okay. And, you know, and the topic was to pretty much, you know, the defund the police aspect of if they do something, have them pay for it. Take away their pension.
That's right.
Take away security. You know, and that's saying it's okay to do something bad. Right. We got you. And just to know that is mind blowing. And you know, and like Laquan was saying, as far as, you know, us governing ourselves, it's true because we did that while growing up. I can remember I was in considered the worst neighborhood where it was gangs on both sides, right? We had at the time it was GDs and vice lords. That's what it was. And I remember walking to school, you know, as a kindergarten, you know, just kindergarten, which 5 or 6, going to kindergarten. And I could walk down the blocks to school and, you know, they would be on the street, but they was the most positive people. Like if they saw you doing something bad, they told you, hey, you don't do that.
That's right.
If they saw you in school, out here. You don't need to be out here. You need to go back to school. If they saw you to your mama any type, you know, your mother any type of way, they would say, oh, you don't talk to your mother like that. You're gonna have to come see me. And it was when the OGs, what we call the OGs, got locked up and, you know, and went to jail, you know, and the young people trying to take over. And then that's when all the violence and chaos started happening because it was safe for us to go to school. We knew every whatever gangbanger, drug dealer, we knew them. You know, it was like our uncle. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't in this dynamic that it is now, where you can't walk out, you know, you can't leave your home, or, you know, your house is getting shot up, or your car is getting shot up, all this craziness. It wasn't that. And so, you know, if we can come back together, like Lachelle said, as a community and put that back, you know, into our communities and build with one another and educate and each one teach one, you know, and give. It's also everybody is takers now. Everybody wants something, you know, and no one wants to give anymore. Like, you can't even give, you know, someone some free advice. You know, hey, you know, go this way. Oh,
Right.
well, call me. I give you. It's this price for a consultation. For
Crazy.
It's you know.
For real.
And that's what it is. It's you know, everybody on this, you know, grind, and you know, I gotta make it, you know, and the truth is success, you know, success is what you make it to be.
Right.
That's right.
And everybody have this dream of success, you know, I want to be, you know, Hollywood and all this
Right.
stuff, and you don't really know what these people go
At
through. Have you
all.
heard stories? You know, some people are silenced. They
Yeah.
can't even say anything. You
For
know,
real.
they don't
That's
even have
right.
freedom.
That's
You
right.
know, they're getting, you know, they are getting taken away from society.
Mhm.
They're getting locked up, you know, like
For real.
for nothing.
Nothing.
And that's what you want to be. You want to, you know, make six figures just to have six figures and not to put back in and invest. You don't even know anything about investing first.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
That should be taught in the school system.
Let's talk about investing, you know, before you hit that six figures and then you lose it and then you wondering
Yep.
why you back at mama house.
That's right. Drink our milk.
Because that's what's going on. And also in our communities, it was, we all wanted to grow up and, you know, get out the communities because it was so bad. And,
Yep.
you know, everybody just moved away, you know, went to the work, you know, went over there and,
Yep.
and thought the grass was greener, and it's really
That's
not.
right.
You
Never.
know,
Never greener.
going over to the gated communities,
Right.
and, you know, you still treated the same way you
Harshly.
treated
Harshly.
in the Black community. And if we can put those resources like back into our communities and, you know, and teach our kids and educate them to go out, you know, make it, but also invest back into your community, build
That's right.
your community back up, you know.
Mhm.
And that's just what I have to say about it. It's a lot, man. Y'all did amazing.
Yeah.
So many major. It's, I mean, in the future, I can say our future is bright because our kids are bright.
That's right.
If you really, you know, you have your children and you really look at them, and it's like they came from a different world. They're so optimistic and they're so loving and they're so caring and they're so willing to learn and to help. Like my children is, you know, they want to help and learn.
Mhm.
I was talking about
Yep.
getting money for the summer and saving up, you know. So just teaching them. I believe if we can all come together and learn and like Lachelle said, heal, get those things, pull those things from under the rug that we have.
That's right.
You know, left in the past in our families, you know, and actually love one another. I think that's what
right.
we don't love each other.
That's right, man. I agree.
Somebody, yes, you see somebody on the street. I have no problem telling you if I see Lachelle on the street, you're beautiful today.
That's right.
That dress, you know, or man, where you get that cologne from? I need to get that from my husband. I have no problem saying those things, but some people, it's like I'm scared to say hi.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So the way you look at me, or you know, your body language, just like I say, hey, it's like I'm like, what? You know, like, what is this attitude for? And I'm not used to that, and I'm used to, and it's crazy how to me, I didn't even grow up in the South, but up here, I'm in Indiana, and up here they still practice those Southern traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up, you know, everybody saying hi to one another. You know, I'm used. That's like a universal thing in our community.
Yeah,
in the Black community, it's a universal thing. So just bringing that back, and having love for one another. I think that's really, really needed, and that's really, really missing.
True.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I was gonna say, when I think of like Black families, like the state in which it looks like to me visually, I'm like a visual learner, so I always see things like visually. It's like an open wound, and I feel that we are just bleeding out.
Mm.
You know, it's just completely bleeding out. It's a wound that's been there, and I just see it going. Like nobody's applying pressure. You know what I mean? Right. The blood is not clotting. No one's applying the pressure. We're just in a system of just accepting it, that this is just the state that we're in right now. And I think that we have great opportunity. I think someone talked about embedding technology and using technology. I think that's a great point, because we can get a message out to so many more people. We can share a story or family history. It may not be my direct family history, but I can attain to that and I can see it because it's a part of me. It's something that is identifiable. It's a story that looks like me. And so if we can actually diversify ourselves and get more into social media and have more representation. Another big thing too that I always talk about being a teacher is that there's really no literature with Black boys in it.
You're right.
That's true.
There's
At the bottom of the
I
totem
have
pole.
a whole library of books, and I have a classroom with half of them are Black males, and they have zero representation.
That's right.
They don't even know what it looks like for them to be in the story. They're never the main characters.
Never.
Never.
Nope.
Never. I actually experienced one main character, and that story was written by an African American guy, but he wrote a story about in the I think it was like 50s, 40s, or 50s, being in New Orleans, and his mom lost her job, and he was working a job, but he was a teenager. So she didn't want him to quit school. And this guy played the horn and came over and had a rent party. So, and everybody came and brought food and they brought money, and they put it in a bucket, and the kids were so fascinated by this. And they could understand and they can connect to their parents saying they don't have enough money for the rent. And then, how the community came together, and they got to see in that moment, they had never experienced anything like that. They didn't have that in their homes where people came together for parties just to support, or people came together to help out. That wasn't a part of their communities. I also thought it was really unique that the Hispanic children understood a lot more than my Black kids did, though.
Yep.
Because they see it in their communities. They were able to identify it and break this story all the way down and see it, at its deepest level. And they understood the mom not making enough money and how much money was that a day and how that wasn't going to be enough to pay for it. The Black children seem a little bit disconnected because we've come up so much. That it's not an issue that their families have to face or they hear. But it was funny to see the class dynamic. I can kind of see the breakdown in that. But I think, like I said, really we're just an open wound and nobody's applying the pressure. Nobody's challenging us to really come together and to get it together so that we have a unit of Black families that are really thriving. And not just financially. I think we focus so much on financial that we forget that it's the emotional aspect, it's the love, and them seeing good examples of love and what it's like to be a wife, what it's like to be a wife to a Black man, what it's like to be a Black man to being a wife to a Black woman, and how do you raise the children? Yeah.
What I might say to that in response, Lachelle, I can agree with your analogy of the Black community and the Black family being wounded. However, for me, when I think back to the fact that for me to sit here right now in all of your presence, my lineage starts from someone being captured in Africa many, many generations ago, having to survive in the holes of a ship, having to survive generationally through slavery. Who knows how many times being ripped away from mother, ripped away from father, and to get all the way to this point. I believe we are meant and destined for greatness and great things. Do I believe we are wounded? Yes. Do I believe there's still much we have to overcome? Yes. But we have overcome so much to get this far, not to bleed out now.
That's true.
Yep.
Not to bleed out
that.
now.
Facts.
So, I think about some of the things that all of you are saying. We have to model it. We have to model it for our kids, because another point that I think we may have skipped over when it comes to the change and why has it changed. I think generationally, a shift of focus of importance happened between the grandparents, the parents, where we are today, where, the parents, as they moved on and what their standard of making it was and how they had to show what making it was to the kids.
Right.
Which then, of course, snowballs into those kids growing up, trying to figure out what the standard of making it was so they can continue to show that. And
Yeah.
You now have a different style, if you will, of keeping up with the Joneses, which may be keeping up with the, Ramels and Taniquas, but still everybody's trying to keep up with an image as opposed to reality. Because
That's right.
I remember when I was a kid, we had new neighbors moving in. My mother baked a pie and we went across the street and welcomed them to the neighborhood.
Yes.
Tell me where that happens anymore.
I don't know.
So these are things we have to model as importance if we want it passed on, picked up, and done. If it, as opposed to just talking about it in expectation.
I agree.
That's good. That's real good.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. Man. Leave it to Scott.
Mike.
Why you with us, brother?
Yeah,
Why you here?
right. Yeah.
Still waiting for my check to clear.
We'll talk about that.
Really? Oh man.
No, but these are incredibly important conversations, because
Absolutely.
One thing, and one of the reasons why I want to thank you, Jasmine and Grinder, for really bringing us together and bringing these conversations to the forefront, is because I think in our community there is so little that's talked about and so much that is internalized. We don't speak to the elephants in the room.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Whether or not it's the lack of economics, whether or not it's the emotional, the mental, whatever it may be, these conversations need to happen so we can break chains, break stigmas, break mentalities, and actually get to where we're going, put pressure on the wound to stop it from bleeding, and get to the greatness that we've been born for, that we've survived for, that we've overcome for. Because we are meant to be here.
Right.
We're not by accident. We are not the byproduct of an age. We are meant for this, and we are meant to excel.
That's right, man.
That's right.
Yep.
Oh man, this has been amazing. Once again, and I totally agree, Scott, with everything that you said. I mean, in these conversations,
that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We do need that, different perspectives in order for us to understand one another and being able to come together. And, as far as learning our history and, and not really repeating our history, the fact is to learn it and do better.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
I love our brothers and sisters. I love us for marching and all that stuff, but we see that marching is never going to change.
It's not working. It's not working, man. For real.
It has to be more action. It has
That's right.
A direct thing. As far as what we are targeting, let's target lynching is still legal. Let's target that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's figure out that. Yes, Scott.
I would disagree, and I think we can mark this moment as the first disagreement on air. Okay, I would disagree with you to one point, Jasmine. I know a lot of people have felt over the years marching has not worked. We march. Something happens, we march some more. Something else happens. Let's get our sneakers and go march. Now, the way I view it is this: marching, where it brought us to with Martin so many years ago, could only bring us but so far if we remember his speech where it talked about content of character and not the color of our skin, right? Mm-hmm. If we start looking now at many of the marches that have been going on since George Floyd, and a few of the other incidents that have happened. The difference, in my opinion, is you are seeing a more kaleidoscopic color in the march. What needed to happen is not the fact that we're marching, but that our marches needed to be joined. And the reason why I believe that is because some of these young people now, young white people, young people of all ethnic varieties, they're starting to align and see where we're coming from and what needs to happen and the foolishness of the past and everything else. We can't make the change on our own because the change has to happen in other people's minds. We know what we need, but other people have to start coming in agreement with it. And that's what we're starting to see with some of the marches that we're seeing now, where if you look at some of them have had more white people than black people in it.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that's where the difference needed to be made. It's not that the marches weren't working, but the next phase of change had to happen, and that change had to happen inside the minds, which is not complete by any, I'm not saying that, but it's starting, and it's starting with those young people who are joining the BLMs and the other movements that are out there, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm going to get cut off.
No, I completely agree. I get where you're going with it. I agree that in order for the marches to work, it will have to be a collective, meaning everybody from everywhere. I mean, and we are divided, you know, some of us because of religious beliefs, you know, does not talk to the, you know, other, we know the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. And that has, you know, it has affected us as well. I think we all need to come together no matter what you believe in, what you like. I don't, that's another subject. That's another subject for another day. I'm not going to get into that because we know it with feelings. And it all comes back to love too. You know, just loving one another. That's right. So no, Scott, I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to kick you out. I do agree. It's just, I believe that not only marching, but for us, other ways to play our parts as well. You know, whatever your talent is, you know, teaching people, you know, education, giving people knowledge of, you know, elevating one another, helping people start businesses and learn about entrepreneurship.
Right. That's right.
Showing the different ways, you know, to earn income, showing the different ways to, you know,
that's right.
Family is built, because that's
right.
You know, you're not a bad family if it's just one parent. You know, you're not
right.
You're not a bad family if it's two parents. You're not, you know, you're not a bad family if you have grandparents. You know, your parents' parents, your biological parents is no longer here. Right. If you were raised by your uncles, or if you were raised by your neighbors, that does not mean that you grew up in a broken home. And like that mentality, and you know, that has to change the mindset. Oh, you was in a broken home because you had one parent. That's not true.
Nah, that's not true.
You know, I had the same love. I had food. I had
that's right.
Shoes, I was playing.
That's right.
I got everything I wanted. You know,
right.
It was not a bad, you know, environment. You know, and I would say I grew up okay. You know, pretty good.
Right.
But yeah, just changing that mentality of what the media projects of us, and actually, you know, help and talking to one another, you know, and it's safe to, if you're talking to your brother or sister, to stop them and correct them and be like, no, you know, that's not true. Yeah, where you get that from?
Right.
You know, you know, and I'm not gonna kick you off, Scott.
My check will cash eventually.
check won't bounce.
Your check won't bounce. But I think you do need to find a way to implement things and stop things where we don't have to resort to marching.
Right.
And I just want to say, reiterating also on what he was saying about other cultures and stuff joining us. we also need to educate them. You know, the educational system didn't just fail us, it failed them too.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying they're not responsible for what their ancestors did. They're not responsible for what their racist parents taught them. You know what I'm saying? Especially for some of those in the South that I grew up with. That's another one too. But they're not responsible for that. They're not. But if you don't know something, then how can you act on it? So we also they need to be educated as well. And they need to know what really happened to our ancestors, what really and what's happening to us now. Some of them are so blind. I was, oh man. So when I was just last year, place that I was working at as a cook, and so there was some people outside, some older Caucasian people, and they started having the conversation. It was, this is when the protesters and stuff was going on, and their conversation was like this. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them. I don't know why they can't just get over it. I mean, why all the pain and the fighting, why they can't just, things are different now. Why they can't just get over it?
Things are different now.
Wow. I guess we'll get over it when they get over it.
Right. For real.
As soon as they stop and they get over, we can get over it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like,
what they talking about?
So you were not watching TV lately?
For real?
You know about the protest.
See that?
Why the protests happened. Okay. This is why we can't get over it. You know what I'm saying? Why years after what happened to Rodney King, years after what happened to Mr. Gardner, we have another brother saying, I can't breathe. That shouldn't have been repeated.
Right.
That should not have been repeated. So, oh man, it's crazy.
It's crazy, man.
We have to educate them. We have to educate those that want to learn. I'll say
that's right. That's right. Well put. Those that want to learn.
Cast not your pearls among swine. So
like that.
Everybody, thank you.
I like that.
Everybody's not going to want to understand it.
Nope.
Everybody's not going to want to learn it. Even some of our people are so blind and brainwashed that they like, I don't understand what's going on. Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Right.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? The biggest thing about it, everybody touched on some really great stuff, but I would say we have to educate the other side as well. You know what I'm saying? Because like he was saying, there are some who are trying to join the fight, especially the young ones. They're tired.
Yeah.
They're tired. Just like with the vaccination thing that's going on, whether anybody got vaccinated, that's fine. But, I was looking at what was going on, Brother Riz Islam and some of the Nation of Islam was out and, they were marching against this. And he was saying about how the young Black youth was coming together. They're tired. But when I looked at the videos, I saw, oh man, different nationalities.
Yes.
There were white brothers and sisters, Black brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? There was Latino brothers and sisters. Saw a couple of Asians came out. It's like the more we educate other cultures about what happened to us, we'll start to understand also it happened to some of them too.
True.
Because one thing about America, if you're not like them or you don't follow their ideas, they're gonna bomb you. They're gonna get rid of you one way or the other. It's the truth. It's a fact. Like she was saying, like Sister Lachelle was saying about it being systematic. It is.
Right.
Everything that's going on from now to then. From then to now, excuse me, is systematic.
Right.
It was for us to fail. The Constitution was not made for us.
Nah.
It was made against us.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
This legislation, the voting process, all of that's fine. Anybody that votes, that's fine.
Right.
But realize they don't care.
Right.
Nope.
They really don't care.
Nope.
And they're going to keep doing stuff to make things harder for for even those who are trying to come out and fight with us and not against us. So we need to educate other cultures as well and say, hey, we can do this together, because now it's not just a black and white thing, a Chinese and Latino thing. It's them against us.
That's right.
Those of us who are striving to live better, those of us who are striving to come together. And let's not forget how we got Central Park. Let's not forget how we got Central Park. It was a thriving community of people who had came together. All nationalities. Black people, Polish people from Ireland.
Wow.
They were cohabitating. They were collaborating with each other. They were building businesses. The America we live in said, oh, hell no. Nah, that ain't happening.
Right.
Not happening. Bombed them. And now we have Central Park.
Yep.
So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. But that's just my how I feel about it. Sorry if I got a little razzle dazzle.
Nah, man.
But I just feel like until we start educating each other, you know, and really coming together, starting to govern ourselves and not looking for them to do what's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's up for us to do what is right towards each other.
Yeah.
We want equality. We want unity. We have to make it so, because they're not going to. This government it's not going to do it. They're going to continue to shut down those who are going to speak out against the evils that they have done. They're going to continue to try and quiet people.
Yep.
So guess what? We're going to get louder. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, brother.
Yes, it's a movement. Let's go. Putting on my shoes, about to march and everything.
Oh, man.
Man.
Oh,
Man. Anything else Scott looked like he wanted
Say what?
I said Scott looked like he wanted to say something.
Well, you know me, I always got something. I would say, after listening to Grindr, the most important thing when it comes to educating everyone else, and the one thing that I think is most important that they don't understand, we're not anti-white.
nope.
There you go.
We're anti-racism.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
We're not
right.
anti-Caucasian.
Nope.
Right.
We are anti-ignorance.
That's right.
We're not anti-government.
Right.
We're anti-government trampling on your rights.
That's right.
And so, and I've had to explain that to people where I'm like, if you're lining up on the side that you think I'm against you, these are the list of things that I am against.
Right.
Okay. I'm not against white people.
Right. Right.
Not against this. I'm not against
Right.
that.
That's right.
So, you know, but I think a lot of people look at us and immediately think, whether or not it's media related, whatever, you know, or how it's been passed down through time, that's who we are. We are not. That's not what we're about.
No.
I have no problem with any spectrum of humanity except those who are against my spectrum of humanity.
And I think as for us all to unite, not, you know, like you all said, with, you know, all people of nationalities, we have to understand. And I see a lot of, especially on social media, like I read a lot of comments and I'll be in the comments like, what in the world? But who are we, anybody, to tell someone else how to feel?
Right. You can't do that. Right. What's that about? Right.
Exactly.
Or their
Right.
experience is wrong.
Right. That's
You
crazy.
know, like it and I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, like
That's
I saw
crazy.
some a person was talking about, it was a black interview. I can't remember what it was, but a white person in the comments gonna try to tell or ask the question. Now, this is one thing. Don't ask a question if you don't want the response to it.
Right.
Well,
You're
So,
not open to it.
right. So you ask the question, what is Black people going through?
get
What
comfortable in the chair. It's going
That's
to
right. Get
What are
comfortable.
y'all really dealing with?
Mm.
It's all, on a list of our wonderful brothers and sisters commented. Do you
Oh,
not
man.
see? Let's what to start?
Oh man.
Segregation.
Right. Crazy.
Let's,
Mm.
government oppression.
That's right. That's right.
We do have to learn that, and we do that to each other as a community as well. We try to tell someone else how they should feel about
Right. That's crazy.
or something that they experienced, and some of us has experienced that as a child. Especially, and that's one of the things we have to heal from. Something happening to one of your own, as far as rape or molestation or whatever, and the older person or whoever you trusted so much. First of all, let's talk about how much it took for that person to come out and say anything about that. Let's take that into account first.
That's right. That's right.
Angry, confused, all these type of feelings, and then they come out and they tell you, and then you tell them you're lying. That cannot be true. I know that person. I know that person very well. So for you to do that to someone, can you just think about how damaging that was? Not only, it was mentally, spiritually, emotionally. This is somebody that you trusted, whether
Right.
a parent, a grandparent, uncle, whoever.
That's right. Yep.
And what you did to that person. And then when that person grows up and don't grow up the way you think they should have grew up, because you did all the right things, right? And
Right.
let's talk about it. You did
Right. Yeah, all the right things.
fed, clothed, they went to you paid for college, whatever.
All that.
You wonder why, it didn't turn out the way that you thought it was. Maybe, that, not to say they're bad. Maybe they got into drugs a little bit. Not to say that, they are a bad person. Let's talk about that. People who do drugs are not bad people.
Not at all.
Let's talk
Not at all.
that.
They just have bad habits and actions.
Exactly. Like, they just have an addiction like most of us have addiction. You're not a bad person.
That's right.
You got a lot of addictions. I'm addicted
That's
to
right.
okay. Don't make me a bad person.
You're addicted to what?
The coffee. I like
Coffee.
my coffee. I'm working on it, but I like it.
I thought you said something else, and I was just wondering where this was all going. I'm going to leave. I saw you point at Grindr, your husband, and I'm just going. I should probably mute
I'm addicted
myself.
to this coffee too. Don't get it twisted.
Oh man.
But yeah, but just to really, help each other heal and listen to one another without responding all the time
Judging each
and
other.
judging,
Right.
saying what you would have done in the situation.
Right.
This person is crazy,
Right.
because of this, that, and another. It's not your story to tell, like oh, it's not
Right.
your
Absolutely.
story. It's not your experience.
Nope.
It's not yours. So whatever that person says, unless you was there, you could be like, hey, that was a whole situation.
Right.
But other than that, if you wasn't there, that's not your place. Your place is to listen and to help that person in whatever they need. Maybe they just need you to listen.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So
Oh, I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Huh?
No, go ahead, Scott.
Okay. I think that's a byproduct of where we are right now in society with all the social media.
Mhm.
Because if you remember growing up, I know I went through it where, there was certain households where, you know, a child will be seen and not heard. You say excuse me before interrupting adults if you dare to interrupt adults.
Right.
Yes.
And you knew that feeling, that moment where either it was Thanksgiving and you were allowed to sit at the adult table, or you were invited into an adult conversation for the first time, and you're like, ooh, you know, oh wow, you know. Now, because of social media, people, especially young people, don't think about the value of words and the value of thought.
Yes.
That's true.
We just spit everything out. And not only spit it out, but since we're in such an instantaneous and self-gratification at the same time, we want not only that answer back, but the way we want it back. And we'll correct it if it doesn't come back the way we want it. So let me ask you a question, but tell you what's on your mind so I can get my response the way I need it.
Right. Yep.
As opposed to really taking stock and knowing what it is to add value because of the worth of what it is that you really are bringing, or being quiet so you can learn. Because part of, even though a lot of kids hated it, you know, about being a kid that was, you know, seen and not heard, part of being quiet around the adults was so you could shut up and learn something. Over in many African communities, and I remember being in a room in Clubhouse where they were talking about this. They look at us like we're crazy when we put grandparents and older people in homes, okay? Because those are revered individuals that the young people are sent to sit at their feet and learn from.
Yes.
So there's something to be said about learning, not only to get poured into, but then knowing the value of what it is you're saying so that you don't feel you have to always say something to take up space.
Right. That's true.
And I'm done.
And I think that goes back to feeling like the big mama all over again. Like it goes right full circle, right back to that moment. Not having that, not that physical presence, but the essence of that in the home being missing and not being there. That's not being infiltrated to the children. So they're not gaining the history. They're not gaining the knowledge. They're not having the examples. And so we're not creating generations who are exhibiting what Black families should look like.
True.
Good point.
That's very, very true. Yeah, I think we have to revamp that, like you all said, you know, bringing the family back together, the elderly back together, but doing it in a better way, because I think why, you know, people chose to, you know, their grandparents or whoever in the home, you know, in a home or a nursing home, was because it was always in our family that one caretaker. Right. In mine, it was my aunt, and she spent her whole life. I saw her whole life taking care of my great grandmother, and how, you know, how tiring that can be for a person. So for us, you know, to start creating that back again for each and everyone to take a part.
That's right.
You know, it's not fair to designate someone to take care of someone else while you go live your life. That's
right.
It's
not fair.
It's not fair, you know, to anyone who wants that responsibility, you know. So just for us to all as a whole take care of one another, you know, call on each other to see what you need, you know, and you know, and just be there.
Right.
Because it has taken a toll. I know it has taken a huge toll on my aunt. You know, she isn't married. She's single. Not to say her life is bad, but, you know, I don't see her going on vacations, you know, a lot, or just living now. And just to think that my great grandmother's no longer here, and that feeling that she has is still with her. That was her whole life, you know, and just to see that is depressing in itself. But for us to just come together and just do what's right. Honestly, if you grown, you should know right from wrong. This just
right. You should. You
Like,
should, man. Right.
And you know, and I tell my kid, you know, she was like, I don't know, you know, how do you know what's right and what's wrong, you know? And I'm like, well, you know, is it something if you're doing something and you want to hide it from me?
Right. That means right.
It's wrong.
Right.
You
You
know
have
what
to
I'm
hide
saying?
it. Right.
So if I come in the room and you're doing something, you like this, you know it's wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
Reaction.
That's right.
You know, so it's just as simple as that. And sometimes we make things harder than what it is. Like, it's not always black and white. You know, it's not always this. Like, okay, so, you know, you can go rob the house while the people is there. Is that what you're doing? You know, in the car while they still inside the car.
Right.
You know, like, just to really think about it. You know, are you while the police is in there?
Right.
Are you robbing a coffee shop while the police is having coffee?
Nope.
You know, just to really think about it's just to really think about, you know, what we say is, you know, and what we do, really, you know. So
you're able to whip out those examples real quick.
I know. I like those examples, man. I like those.
You didn't ever talk about the games earlier. You heard that, right?
Little concerning. I'm just saying. But we know who to go to if we ever need the budget augmented.
I'm gonna edit all that out.
Oh man,
you gonna rob the bank while y'all there, you know?
Lord, oh, man. But this everything that's funny. But everything that everyone said that was great. You know, and it's just that understanding has to be there of who we are and continue to, you know, as a black family to know that it's not so much a history that we have, but more so it's a legacy.
That's right. Well put. Legacy.
Legacy that we have, and we have to uphold that.
That's right.
We have to teach, we have to educate. Not only that, we also have to be willing to learn.
That's right.
You know, to show love to our fellow man. Any means necessary, to quote Malcolm.
That's right.
So, but with that being said, we want to say thank you to our beautiful, beautiful panel for everything that y'all said, for all of your opinions. And I feel like you guys were the teachers today. We was just listen. Yes, Scott. Yes. We're giving you a little praise today. To our wonderful, wonderful panel, we thank you guys so much. And you gave our listeners something to hear and to learn from. This is why we're here. This is why Black Families Rising are a group. This is why we're here. So that's it for this episode of Black Families Rising. I want to thank you guys for choosing to spend this time with us.
And remember to check out our blog and follow us on all social media. And stay tuned for our next coming up episodes.
So until we meet again, keep striving.
Keep rising. We are BFR and we are out.
Let's get love life in the place to be. Let's get no matter where it's going. Live love life. Stack that paper. Be faithful to your wife. And if you're locked down,